Welcome back to the Tri Radar podcast. Today I'm joined by Andre Bekker. While racing, Andre dominated his age group, posting times that actually defy his age. He ranked first in the world for Ironman 70.3 in 2018. And your Ironman times weren't too shabby either, were they? Welcome to the show, Andre.
Thank you for having me.
So, Andre, you're now coach with Fifth Dimension. And I counted when I was stalking you that there were 17 Ironman wins. I believe you actually had a couple of course records at Buffalo.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And it's 18 to be correct.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
Really hard for the 18th one.
And I also noticed when you had a bad race, you came in like sixth or something. So, you know, I think it's fair to say that you had a pretty good age group career there.
Yes, I have. Yes, I've been fortunate. Thank you.
So the first question I wanted to ask you really is you were a pro cyclist, so you had some really good stage wins. You enjoyed a good career there. But what got you into triathlon?
I started triathlon before I started cycling, and one of the guys that I did the triathlon with, he said the only way for us to improve our triathlon is we have to go race with the pro bike riders and with the elite bike riders, as it was called then. And I found myself racing on the track. I found myself doing everything that a cyclist did, and to try and become a better triathlete. And the result was I actually enjoyed the cycling more than the triathlon, and spent the best part of the next 10, 12 years just cycling. And when I stopped cycling, I studied a bit and started swimming with my kids. And people said, you should be doing triathlon. And I said, yeah, but I did that 20 years ago, you know. And the more I started swimming, the more people said, let's do open water swims. And we started doing open water swims. And the next minute, I started running again. And the next minute, people go, yo, you should be doing this. And I thought, this should be good fun. You know, and I started doing triathlons literally 20 years later again for the second time.
So if you kind of like had the benefit of years of training and things, but if you could roll the clock back, I mean, what piece of advice would you give yourself with the wisdom you have now when you're starting out?
Oh, that's very difficult. I come from a very politically driven background in the South African context. We were banned from racing in Europe because of apartheid and all the lovely stuff that goes with it. And I was one of the first, in actual fact, the very first contingent of South African pros that could race in Europe. And, you know, if it's not so much advice that I could give myself. If I had a choice, I would like to be a bike rider first and foremost and race in Europe a lot more than what we had. But so my best piece of it, or I subscribe to it, is just have fun. Have fun with what you do. That'd be the first thing. Enjoy it. Then benchmark yourself. Benchmark. If you want to improve, benchmark yourself. If you don't want to benchmark, just have fun. But go out there and do things. Move your ass.
And so when you started racing in Europe, I mean, what was that like for you? It must have been, mind blowing, having a look at some of those races and seeing yourself against some of those other athletes.
Yeah, the one minute you see them on TV, and the next minute you standing next to Greg LeMond and having a conversation with him, racing with Greg LeMond, that's just won the Tour de France, and it was quite something, with TV cameras all over the place. And literally, I was a massive Greg LeMond fan. I thought he was God as far as sport went. And the next minute, here I am having a chat with him and racing with him. And he's literally holding his hand out and said, whatever help you need, I will help you, So that was a culture shock. We were a lot better than what we thought we were. We could actually race with him. And I raced in France with Greg and finished in the first 30 out of 80 riders in the pro peloton on my first big race, which doesn't sound all that great. But if you come from a background which is not benchmarked, and cycling is one of those things which unlike swimming or running, you have a benchmark, i.e. a time on a track, a time in a pool. This has a lot to do with tactics and different terrains, and you've got to apply your mind. Completely different than a measured sport like time trialing or running races or swimming. So yes, we were good. We enjoyed it. I was struck in awe and really enjoyed the time in Europe.
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned mindset there, because I think one of the things that you've often mentioned to me when we've been, sort of down by the lake and things is, the importance of mindset. So I just wondered if you could share with our listeners a little bit about your philosophy on, mindset and around, endurance sports.
My philosophy that would be back to square one. Train. It's if you're talking about intervals compared to zone 2 or endurance type of training rather than intervals, I believe in the 90-10% principle. 90% of the time you're going to go aerobic and 10% anaerobic training for the obvious reasons. And the obvious reasons is mentally it's a whole lot easier to do the volume, also to build a foundation on which you can operate. If you do a lot of high intensity training, you are gearing yourself up for injuries. If you spend your time just with the zone 2 easy stuff, aerobic, you're building a foundation, and everything's a pyramid, right? The bigger the foundation, the higher the pyramid. So build that foundation, make sure your system works well, your aerobic capacities and all is well developed, your muscles, your tendons, all are conditioned to a heavy workload, and then build up with the intervals. Intervals is truly the last thing you really want to add on, simply because of injuries. And as you get older, injuries is always much more a part of the discussion.
So do you think that was probably one of the keys to your longevity and your consistency? Because I mean, it's quite a, your wins were over quite a good spread. They weren't condensed. So is it applying that in day-to-day training that helped?
I might give you the answer that you don't want to hear at this point. But it's unfair. My longevity is not one thing, but I would say this. My longevity is the lack of using drugs and having a clean and healthy lifestyle as best as I possibly could. Steering clear from the pitfalls of the pro cycling world. If you look at the pro cyclist, specifically from people that I've ridden with and have met, either they landed up in rehab or died early on, they become pretty dysfunctional in society. And it's a broad, wide statement. But having said that, a lot of them just can't continue at that level, and their bodies can't deal with it. If you live a healthy lifestyle, neat and clean, don't drink yourself to death, don't smoke, and don't do drugs, I think you can stretch that much longer. Also the big issue is the mental fatigue. One of the top pros said to me, the fact that you can do the Ironman races means you didn't race hard enough as a pro bike rider. And there's some truth in that. There is some truth in that, because we didn't race, because I came from South Africa, raced in Europe. I raced 2 months at a year in Europe, where the European guys were racing 6 months. So the mental fatigue is a massive thing, and that really destroys your constitution as well.
And just moving on to the training a bit slightly. I mean, how did you cope with running a business and fitting your training in, and the kids and life as well? How did you balance that?
That wasn't so balanced. I got divorced because of the cycling. So I think if you're a pro bike rider, the majority of pro bike riders I know, and either got divorced or just couldn't get into relationships. And if you read Jonathan Wouters' book, which is the current director sportif for EF education, there was just no place for relationships. So unfortunately, those things take a step or second place. I've often said to people, if you don't understand single-minded dedication, I cannot explain it to you. Right? There is no definition, no way that I can explain to you what single-minded dedication means. Now, single-minded dedication in layman's terms means your wife, your family, your parents, the people around you, all invest all their energy in your goal. Sounds awfully selfish, but that's the only way Rafa Nadal got to where he is. That's the only way Nova got to where he is. It's the only way Mark Marquez got to where he is, Michael Schumacher, and we can carry on and on. Those people are single-minded, and they rally everyone around them to support their cause. Now, obviously, in my little world, that didn't sit so well with my wife. You know, I'm geared. I'm the type of guy that needs to do 3 or 4 things at the same time. So training was not the only thing. I needed to study. I needed to work. I needed to do other things as well. So this part of my disposition is that I need a lot of action around me. Otherwise, life is not balanced. My balance is not someone else's balance.
Quite. And you know, did that sort of change as you kind of moved into the age group side of things, away from the pro cycling? Did you find achieve a better balance?
No.
No.
The answer is emphatically no. I got married a second time, and I explained to my wife, and we literally had to go to get outside help, a psychologist, and said, you know, this is what I do. You are going to be second in this equation. And strangely, the psychologist said, you know, that is the only place for you that you will fit in, because that's the way Andre is geared. And she said, this works for me, and supported, again, back to that single-minded thing. So for the best part of 10 years, I was as single-minded doing triathlon and Ironman as I possibly could. And she supported it. And I have to say, what a change, what a fantastic world when you have someone right next to you that lives, breathes, and does everything you do and supports you. You know, it makes life a lot easier. You know, that I think if you are that fortunate to have that in your life, and that would be my balance, and that would be my wife Julie's balance too. Her balance is giving her time, supporting something that means something to someone else. I think that's what, if you look at top sportsmen, which I don't put myself in that category, but that's what people have around them. People that don't argue about the fact that you ride your bike for 6 or 7 hours. You know, people that say, why don't you do a bit more? Why don't we help you with this? Why don't we get some outside help in? You know, I've never had that. How cool is this, you know? So the result was, for 10 years, I was single-mindedly dedicated towards the Ironman. And when I won the world champs, the first thing I did was to say thank you to Julie, because I don't think it was possible without her.
So she's part of the team at the time, isn't she? You know, she's
100%.
You need that support.
Yeah, 100%. Without her, I do not believe it could have been done.
So, Andre, was there a particular race that stood out for you that as a favourite? You know, one that, you know, kind of you had to earn more than the others, or for another reason?
Winning the world champs was the race that stood out for me, simply because so much effort went into getting there and getting it done, right? And I chose the race, the world champs, when it was in South Africa, simply because it was in South Africa and there would be a lot of support. But with that comes a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure. You know, if you do something like that in another country, it's a whole lot different than when you go to your backyard and say, all right, here I am. And there's a lot of people going, you need to do this. We expect you to do that. Well, your expectations and my reality are pretty far removed, you know. So that it was monumental for me, simply because I don't consider myself a very talented sportsman. I have to work really hard to get to do things, and not only hard, but I need to be consistently dedicated, like I said, all-consuming towards getting it right. And so when I did cross that line and I knew I was first in my age category, it was a massive weight that was off my shoulders, more so than any other race, simply because of all the work. It took me the best part of 8 years to get there, to understand what was required from me physically, mentally, the support around me, what needs to be done. and then have a little bit of luck as well, and there was no doubt that I had to have a little bit of luck. I'm not the type of sportsman that can win this thing 5 times in a row or something like that, but hard work, and when it pays off, if ever you want to see my heart rate files for that day, it defies logic. It gives you a picture into someone that was possessed, absolutely possessed. And if you knew the chances that I took, it made no sense. No one in his
Were you
right
topping out?
Right? Sorry?
Were you topping out in places?
I was above my lactate threshold for the best part of 4.5 hours, which anyone that will coach you will tell you is entirely impossible. Okay. It's just not possible. And yet I did that. And I kept on thinking, you only have one shot at this. It was the 5th time I'd done the world champs, but this is the last time. No amount of coming back is going to work. This is it. Either this, or you will never be able to say that you've succeeded. And so I was as mad as you're going to get, in terms of driven. You could not find a more driven person on the day. For again, the context, so much had gone into. Julie had put so much into it, and I looked around, and everyone else's expectations were so high that I could not let people down. So yes, that unfortunately, and when the job was done, it was like a bear jumped off my back.
So yeah, so what a way to finish your your career on that win.
Yes, it was absolutely fantastic. The bear just jumped off my back, and I did 2 more full Ironman races after that. One again in South Africa, which I have to honestly say I was rather annoyed with the context of the race. I was in such good condition, and the lightness that came with me was I could just run, and I could ride my bike, and I just felt like literally 10 kilograms lighter than ever before. So I was in unbelievably good shape. And this was 6 months later. We had the Africa champs in South Africa, with literally half the field being Europeans coming to get the easy slot for Kona. And they shortened the swim, and I was going to break the course record. Now, no matter how bad the condition was exceptionally poor that day, but I was just so good, and I would have broken the course record for the 2nd time, and I was really unhappy with that. So I got to be Africa champs then, and then I did another race in Maryland, in America, and jellyfish stung me.
Oh wow!
And I got an allergic reaction and could hardly run, and it's the worst run I want to say I'd almost ever had. I literally nearly landed up in the medical tent. Well, they brought a wheelchair out after the finish, ran 4 hours and something. But I was still first in my age category for what reason? Because I rode a bike of 452, 480 kilometers, which is not too bad for someone that's 56 years at that point in time. So, and that's when I finished. And when I sat in the wheelchair, all I could think was, this is it. Because I wanted to be first in my age category 18 times. I don't know where I got the number from, but 18 sounded like a good number. 20 would obviously be better, but I couldn't stretch that far. So when I ticked the box 18 times, I thought, world champion, 18 times first. This is as good as it gets. You can go home now. So
Job done.
Yes, then I stopped. Never could engage again in anything after that.
Well, you say you stopped, but I mean, I know that you've been doing, your version of relaxing and my version of relaxing are 2 very different things. I mean, you've been attempting some outrageously crazy mountain biking, haven't you?
Yes, I think it's for me, it's a drug. I need to calm myself down. So getting outside, doing things, having little goals. Gone are the lofty goals, it's about having truly the fun. And the reality of the matter is, when I trained really hard for Ironman, and I literally did my 20, 23, 4, 5 hour weeks, week in, week out, I really enjoyed what I did. Absolutely loved doing what I did. And often I would stop and go, this is cool. I really enjoyed it. But when the pressure left me, or I left the pressure behind, I really enjoy going out there. I really enjoy riding my bike. I really enjoy going to swim in the lake. And I enjoy not having pressure of any sort. So and my message to everyone else is get out there and do things. The swimming, go swim in the lake, go ride your bike around the block, go for a run, go do the park runs. These things are unbelievably inspiring. And our good friend Steve and myself went to Sunderland 2 weeks ago. We ran the park run there. And I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I thought this is the coolest thing under the sun. I think once you've adopted sport as your formal drug, then life changes, and it is my drug of choice.
I think you touched on something really important there. I mean, even with like a single-minded attitude and thing, people forget that actually when you're in the process and you're on the training drug, you're enjoying that. And it annoys me when actually I see other athletes where they are, I've got to get this session done, or it's like you've got to enjoy the whole journey, right?
100%, even the bad days. And I've always had this thing of being thankful for where I am. It's one of the things I've always done is when I get back home, just thinking to myself, I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to go and ride. Thankful for the run. When I go to club runs, to the park run, not often, without fail, the first thing that I do when I cross the line is I'm thankful for having the opportunity to be here. Just appreciating and respecting the context of that. So I think if they sigh because they want to, and it's a bad day, a bad day is a whole lot better running around the park in the mud than sitting and watching TV. A whole lot better. There's no comparison. I'll take the bad days any time of the day. Running around in the mud and falling all over the place, as you know. Love it.
Yeah. Were there any training sessions that you really look forward to? Did you have a swim workout, a bike workout, and a run kind of workout that were, your favorite ones to do?
I think the favorite ones are the ones that are the testing ones, the ones where you have to do the intervals, the ones where you go to the track and you've got 1,000 meters lined up and it looks like a mountain in front of you and you've got to run them consistently at a certain pace. And for me, I hardly ever slept properly the night before a proper either training ride or run. Those things inspire you. Those are the things that keep you alive. Those are the things that keep you awake at night and go, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And halfway through that set, you go, I've got this, and when you are done, you go, this is good. This is cool. That satisfaction, that's priceless. So interval sessions for me on the track, on the bike has always been the ones that not only it's not fear, that you respect, and the ones that get you alive. Those are the ones that make you wake up at night and go, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow? But you do it because that's what you want to do. Without those things, you will get absolutely nowhere.
So you look like your times obviously have been outstanding. And, from the outside looking in, it is easy to think, that guy is just talented. But, as you've said, you've worked really hard to put yourself there. But was there one area that you kind of felt weaker in that you had to put more effort and energy into than the others?
I had to, because I came from a fairly okay running background and obviously a very solid cycling background, I had to get my head around the swimming part, and specifically the sea swims. So I would go on holiday to the sea and swim in the sea and swim to the shark nets and make sure that the lifeguards would either be with me and they couldn't get through the breakers. So I would get through the breakers by myself and swim to the shark nets, say hello to the sharks and swim back. So I made a big effort of acclimatizing and familiarizing myself with the sea. spoke to the guys at the sea, the lifeguards, the people that knew the sea well. And so that was part of the challenge, is to learn and overcome that particular challenge. And that's part of the exciting thing, is to learn and become better at something that you're not all that good at. You know, so at the World Champs, we had the best part of 25 Americans that I helped in the sea before the race and taught them or showed them what to do. And that was cool, because again, we got outside help of people to tell us how the currents work. So I'm all about learning things. And so that was a part that I really needed to do. The other part that I really needed to get my head around was how to get off the bike and run the run properly. That took some time to understand what I can do and what is required.
Was nutrition something you had to kind of learn along the way?
Because I've always a bike rider and we ride quite a lot, the answer is yes and no. At first, I started eating too much, because on the bike, you really need to eat, because you burn calories when you ride your bike like nobody's business. But then I realized that I can get away with eating a lot less and get through the run, and I can balance that. So I went from eating a lot to eating less, which I think most people are the other way around. They eat too little, and then they need to learn how to eat and then balance it that way. So the nutrition was part of the learning curve, specifically the gels and the sugar part, which you know, I was a gel guy, as I think most people are, because you get carried away with the ads and the marketing science that's attached to these things, but it's all marketing, right? And I did about a 6-hour ride the one day and didn't have food, and I bonked, as they would say, and I wasn't going to get home, or not at least not in good shape. And I had a honey sachet with me that I could not get my head around, because honey is pretty powerful and strong, and it's not the type of thing that you just eat because you've got nothing better to do, you know. And I had no choice, so I took the honey sachet out that I carried with me for months, and literally within 5 minutes I was on fire, and I rode back home faster than ever. Well, not faster than ever, but I was just on fire. And from that minute forward, I threw all the gels out the door, started training with the honey, and just embraced the honey situation. And anyone that I coach, I will say, you know, let's try the honey, let's work with the honey, because honey was the one thing that, from a nutritional perspective, changed my world.
Top tip.
Yeah.
But I know you like your Bianchis.
Yes.
Yeah, but was there any other kit that was a go-to for you, or is go-to for you, in terms of, you know, you got set brands that you use for other things?
For whatever reason, on the swimming side, I got hooked up with 2XU.
Yeah.
And the product has worked really well. I do believe there's some other product out there at the moment, wetsuits that are better than 2XU. But, you know, I think it's like anything. My Bianchi and 2XU, specifically the Bianchi situation, comes from friends that have got the brands and distribution rights, and that have helped me through the years. And you just have the loyalty to go and support the people that have supported you. So Bianchi has been great to me and the people around there. And so has 2XU. You know, the people from 2XU have been absolutely fantastic through the years. And they've got a good quality product. Absolutely no question about it.
Okay, so there are worse brands than Bianchi to you know, to have helping you, and, you know, to be riding, aren't there?
That is 100%. I think the Bianchi thing in the triathlon context is a little bit left of center. That shows my DNA being coming from a cycling background, because the angle on the Bianchi TT bike is too aggressive for triathlon and Ironman. So we had to make some changes to that. But I was not going to get another bike. That was not going to work. So we'll just make and again, I'm fairly used to riding aggressive angles, so I could do with that.
So just to finish off with, and for any age groupers listening to this, wanting to move themselves up to the next level, what 3 bits of advice would you give to them?
Number one, again, is enjoy what you do, right? Benchmark yourself. Do testing, and never compare yourself to someone else. Benchmark yourself against yourself and improve against yourself. And the only way you're going to do that, the third thing, was to be consistent. So those are the 3 things: have fun, benchmark yourself, and be consistent. And if you tick those 3 boxes, well, the 4th one would be follow the process. You've got to understand what the process is, and work with that. And the process is part of that benchmarking, or benchmarking is part of the process. I've had a discussion with someone just yesterday, explaining how important the process is. Michael Schumacher would win a Grand Prix, and they would say, you've had a fantastic race, and he would say, no, there's a specific corner that I really couldn't get my head around, couldn't get the lines in and out. And people look at the outcome. You and me are Liverpool fans. If Liverpool focus on the process, they will win the game. The outcome will come. The outcome will look after itself. And the same for triathlon or any sport. If you follow the process, if you learn to pedal in a round circle, if you learn to run with your feet falling under your hips, if you swim and your stroke is efficient, those are a lot more important. If you got those things covered and you work really hard at the process and focus on that, the results will come. So, at the end of the day, we live in an outcome-based world. We understand that. But the outcome is secondary, is a function of you understanding and you mastering the process. First, you master the process, then the outcome will look after itself. Rafael Nadal didn't win the Australian Open because he was outcome based. Every shot is a process. Every single shot is one shot. And you master that one shot, then we can go to the next shot. And we haven't even won a point. We need to step right. We need to focus on the ball. We need to think about placing. This is one shot. You cannot think about the outcome. So have fun, learn about the process, get your head around the process, do the benchmarking, and be consistent. And even your bad days, be thankful that you're out there doing things on your bad days.
So some top tips there. Andre, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you. Thank you for taking time out to talk to us. I'm lucky enough, I'm going to take you for a beer in the near future and be able to tap you for some more information. But for those of you that can't, I'm going to put Andre's details of Fifth Dimension Coaching in the show notes, and you'll be able to get in touch with him, and maybe even get some coaching from the great man if you're lucky.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll see you around in the mud.